L.A.R. movement still moving. Um, as you can see by the title of this, this is the question. Is racism on its last legs, or global white supremacy, or whatever, right? And for me, I see some things in society that it's no nice way to say some of this stuff. What's up? That this isn't just like when, let's just say, Republicans or conservatives or Trump or the Make America thing goes. That's not. This is. It's beyond that for me. It's part of the talking point. What's happening, right? Uh, it's part of it, but what I as a person see is, what's up, Ryan? What's up, Patrick? What I see is this. I'm looking at, say, just the United States right now. This is where I'm gonna start. You have these moments where you hear people like, okay, you know, I wanna passive aggressively say, be racist or white supremacist, and because, oh, politically we're in a power position, right? So you should just let everything go, and we should just start for today and start fresh. And it's like, I hear you. I know it's some BS, but I hear you. But also, that's also tied to um, the economy, because this country's so far in debt and it's going to get more in debt. And because it's going to get so much in debt that, in some ways, the fall of the ideal of the United States of America is imminent, but it's also going to get blamed on predominantly white men. And all of the, and what comes with that is, you mean to tell me as a group, you had slavery, you had Jim Crow, you had, all of these political policies to keep you in the prime number one position. You went to other countries. Your politicians and your government decided to infiltrate other countries, whether it be spies, whether it be assassins, whether it be the military, and you started wars, or assisted in wars, or covertly created wars to get all the other resources on the planet, you know, um, for pennies on a dollar. And at the end of the day, you still wound up ruining everything you quote unquote, everything you pillaged, everything you stole, everything you finessed, everything you even worked for. You you literally pillaged it all. And as much as you want to blame, oh, it's the blacks, or it's this Hispanics, or it's the Asians, it's the immigrants, it's what winds up happening over time is, you wind up in a situation where, globally, all the other races of people are going, you know what, you know, you were winning, that's true, but the way you do things doesn't really work. That's the issue. That's the real issue with places like China, places like Singapore, because like China, Hong Kong, Britain left what? Was it 30 to 60 years ago? And now China's just booming, right? And that's the issue. That becomes the issue, because now you find us, you know, when you think about historically Black America, when Black America is left alone, we grow exponentially, and we grow and we grow fast. And America had a thing where, hey, we got to stop that. We got to stop that. Like, we got to make sure, they're only at a certain level. And thus what you wind up, how can I say this? What you wind up with is a situation where people don't believe white America or Europeans have the best way of handling business, creating innovation. The society and the world that people want to live in is not the same. Like people want to live in America. Yeah, I get it. But the problem is what? If you want to live in America, it's sad to say what I'm about to say. A lot of living in America this is the ideology of, hey, you got to assimilate. And now when people go, well, if I assimilate, am I assimilating to a losing ideology? But that's where you have this split with people, where you have people who are not, they're not white. So it's non-whites, whether it be other blacks, whether they be from here or Africa or the Caribbean, or you have Hispanics, you have Asians, you have Muslims who have this, well, I like how America's set up in certain spots. So I'm gonna just ride with, everything that's white. And the reality of it is now that's falling apart too. Man, I got a call. Sorry about that. You know. So you wind up in this situation where now people are tripping, and I'm gonna expound on it in this way. People wanted, and I've said this before. People wanted America to thought America was the smartest place. So now America's smart, right? But the problem with that is America wanted certain people to be smart and other people to not be smart. So you part of the privilege and the is propping up people, and part of the privilege is sabotaging others, and the issue becomes you wound up sabotaging your own group trying to prop them up. So now, and I say this politically also, that's why people look at the politicians and a lot of the government officials. It starts to become idiotic. It's like, oh, these people aren't smart. They're just, and I hate to say that, but these people aren't smart. They're just white, and because they're white, they get an infinite amount of times to either get it right or get it wrong. You get what I'm saying? So now when people are forced to, you got to get it right the first time, and it's not gonna it's not a it's a it's not it's kind of a, let's just say, racial, gender, class thing or whatever, where this is not a situation where I got to get it right the first time and you get 5 or 10 times to get it right, and if I get it wrong the first time I might be done. But if you get it wrong 5 or 10 times, there's still a avenue to get you back in the game and get you on top. And part of the issue with that is what? Doing that costs money. It costs resources. And there's, whether people like it or not, there is not an infinite amount of resources for everybody, for people on the planet. And there comes a point where either you're gonna make something out of it or you're not. And what wound up happening over the years was this country invested in the idea of, let's just say, white privilege, not even white supremacy. Invested in the idea of white privilege so much that you basically wrote a blank check for mediocrity and failure. And because you wrote that blank check, you got to pay it. So now other people are looking like, oh, okay, I'm watching this and it's like, okay, people aren't good. You know, it's not just that people aren't good. It's the fact that people aren't good for a very long time. And it's like, oh man, so and at the same point of not being good for a very long time, you have this scenario where no nice way to say this. You have this scenario where if you're not good and you're not good for a long period of time, and you in your mind you say I'm great, I'm great, I'm still great, I'm always great. Doesn't matter how many times I fail, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna be great. What you're gonna wind up with is a bunch of failure on top of failure on top of failure. You get what I'm saying? It's gonna be failure on top of failure on top of failure, and you're gonna wind up having a situation where you feel like we have a pile of money built on all of these shenanigans, but we have so much money we can pay for the failures, and just like anything else, you start running out of money. You started running out and running out and running out, and it's like, yo, there's no way around it. And that's part of using the educational system. That's part of having that situation where, oh, okay, now college is so expensive that nobody can afford to go. And if you go, and if you can even if you can get a bunch of loans and loan your way through it, you won't probably get a return on that investment. And now you're paying that debt for some people for life, right? And I had a theory about the college thing a long time ago because, in my opinion, it was like, why did you keep raising the price of college? Why did you keep raising it? What made you raise it? Because people forget in the 80s, early 90s, the irony of it is the Cosby Show had this spinoff to A Different World. When A Different World happened, the Cosby Show in A Different World was so popular in the my bad. I had to handle that real quick. It's my homeboy, but um, what happened was in that time period, the Cosby Show in A Different World, black Black America's college enrollment and acceptance skyrocketed. It just went through the roof, and because it went through the roof, shout out to Eddie Griffin. He probably still at the SLS, and he had a dope show. Hopefully, he's still at the SLS, but and happy belated birthday, by matter of fact. But because of that, y'all don't remember in the late '90s, early 2000s, college started trickling up, trickling up, trickling up, trickling up, because they was trying to make it overly expensive for people, overly expensive, and now it got overly expensive to the point that white America can't afford it. You get what I'm saying? So now, you know, we have a major issue, and there was a segment in that time where they had the thing where non white people, Hispanic people, Asians, they started going to HBCUs. They still do it to a degree because it's like, you know what, the education is still an education, and HBCUs are cheaper than the regular public state colleges, and it's like, let's just do it that way because it's gotten overpriced. Now the reason I bring that up is the same reason for the finances and the credit cards and the loans, just in adult life, because the want to be in the quote unquote power position of America has been put on a credit card, and people can't pay it. You know what I'm saying? You ever wonder how you got these people, you can be 25, 30, 35, 40, and and you're still trying to figure this out. Like, it's not, you're trying to figure this equation out. Like, wait a minute, I do have a credit card, a couple of credit cards, but my line of credit is not as high as other people's line of credit. And you know, some people you might have 1,000, some people might have five, some people might have 10. And then you come across people and they got 50 to $100,000 worth of credit. And it's like, yo, and they're damn near maxed out at that. And you trying to figure, like, what the heck? Like, how did you get this much credit? At a certain point, they would stop us. They wouldn't exceed the. They wouldn't say, okay, if we maxed out 1,000, they might give you five. They might. You max out five, they ain't gonna jump and give you 20. Oh, you got a good credit score. You make the minimum payments on time. There comes a point where they shut that stuff down on us, and I'm not even talking about like business credit. I'm talking about just straight personal credit. You know, business credit is different. So you see a lot of this, a lot of this going on, and what you're seeing is, for me, I'm looking at white privilege. I should have put his white privilege on his last legs. I might change the title to that. You know, because if it's on its last leg, it's like it's choking itself out. Like, I can't keep up with all this. It's like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to keep up. You're entering mathematical impossibility territory. And when you expand this out globally, it starts to get worse. It starts to get worse. He said, yeah, for $500 increase, it's wild. So when you talk about, okay, Europe is gonna have an issue when Africa starts saying, no, you're gonna pay full price. You get what I'm saying? You see people in Central, you see the issue, like with the petrodollar, in Saudi Arabia, and the Middle East, when they decided we're not just gonna sell oil in dollars globally. We gonna switch it up a little bit. So that took the U.S.'s that took some wind out of the United States of America sales, because it's like, oh snap, we don't have control like we used to. So other people can bid for the quote unquote global control. And then what you wind up having is what I think is gonna happen is gonna be a major unraveling. And what I mean by a major unraveling, I mean you're gonna see groups of people, countries, decide to make, like, the United States and Europe pay full price, right? And you're gonna see a quick shift in wealth. When they think about the wealth, oh, this is, people look at like cryptocurrency. It's good. It's going to be a wealth transfer, and the baby boomers die. It's going to be a wealth transfer, and it's like the ideology is the wealth transfer is going to be from one group of white people to another group of white people. I don't see it happening like that. I don't, because a lot of what we think global, not just, the global white privilege is really, let's just say, Europeans and Caucasians of different ethnicities really living high on the hog of everybody else in the world. It's not, it's not just Europe. It's not just the United States. It's not just like Australia. No, you basically living off of Africa, Asia, Central, South America. you know, all of the islands, whether it be Caribbean, Polynesian. What's up with it? So now you're in that situation that all of those people are gonna start going, okay, nah, we're gonna go back to our ways because a lot of these other cultures, you know, may not be as technologically advanced, quote unquote. But the issue is most of the other cultures in the world aren't wasteful. Like when you think about all of the cultures, whether it be, let's just say, when you think about history of Native American culture, when you think about history of Asian culture, which in certain places in Asia now is getting wasteful, but and prior to that it wasn't wasteful. When you think about African culture, when you think about Central South American culture, is people could live off the land, uh, people can feed the village, feed the group, feed the tribe, use everything off of anything, and weren't wasting, and the work and everything was plentiful. And we took the plentifulness of everything that goes on in the world, and concentrated it to a particular segment, and that's going to come to an end. And when that comes to an end, it's like, well, you're going to have one group lose and all the other groups gain. Like dependency on luxury amenities. That's real. That's real. Because a lot of these amenities, some of them are cool to live with. All of them are really cool to live with. But do you need all of them? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So I asked, like, is it on its last legs? Because everybody else, like, you're seeing this, you're seeing, at least in social media, you can look around and see how there's some groups of people in white America that, like, they're still on the Charlottesville, you will not replace us type of time. And even if that was to be, even if they feel like, oh, we're gonna fight for this, we're going all the way. We're gonna go out with a bang. We're gonna go out swinging. We're gonna fight and get our control back. That's not finna happen. It's just not finna happen. Like all of the gatekeeping has, like you said, the gatekeepers, all of the gatekeeping has stopped. And because the gatekeeping has stopped, we got issues. Because you think about all of these major industries, a lot of them have been, making top dollar off of people, and they haven't actually been giving people their just due. So you started to see more independence, and the more independence you seeing, it was chipping away at corporate conglomerates. And what you see now is corporate conglomerates, like, you know really trying to consolidate all of the resources, all of the powers, all the power, all the money into these entities. But there comes a point where you do as much as you can and people start checking out. And that's what you see now. You see it with, like, major metropolitan cities. you know, the taxes got too high in some places. So people like, I'm selling, I'm leaving. You see it, the apartment complexes, they build them, they're new, they got a lot of amenities, they're straight, but then people look at it like, man, they cost too much. So now, so sometimes the newer ones, they're still in a reasonable price, and people might move into the new ones, and then they move out of the older ones. But either way, whether there's older apartment complexes, middle of the road, or even newer, all three of those groups are going to lose business. All three of them. All three of them aren't gonna actually be at full capacity. So at some point, they're gonna have an issue. You get what I'm saying? You see it in when people are talking about inflation in business. When they go like, oh man, inflation, the price of everything is going up. People can't afford this. People can't afford that, and it's true. But the question is, what are people willing to do? Man, man, I'm sad to hear that, Patrick. So you have this over and over and over again. So instead of like other groups suffering, you seeing the whole country and just white privilege in general suffering. And I think people who are accustomed to that privilege have a hard time losing it, and a worse time losing it because of their own people's mess ups. A lot of this stuff, like I said before, it can't be blamed on other groups of people. This is just, white privilege is coming to an end. It is what it is. So now what are people gonna do? Like what are people, what are people accustomed to doing? Not to mention the whole population thing where uh the population, is basically dying in Europe. Just like the population is dying in certain parts of Asia. But it's dying in Europe. And the white population is actually slowly decreasing and declining here in the United States of America. And in general, white people are like total like 10% of the global population, something like that. So when they start losing ground in their own place, Europe, and here, it's not going to be too long until white America becomes a minority in America. It was like that for a short stint. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the whole immigration, policy thing. It's not just, oh, people are just illegals. It's a numbers game. Like we got to get rid of all of these quote unquote non-white immigrants because it's too many. They got too many people. It's messing with our numbers type of situation. So, but the numbers will never go back. The numbers will never go back. So now you have a whole nother problem. So what happens? What happens when you find this, when we're looking at America in this situation? You're going to see some people who want to get violent. You're going to see some people who are going to be conniving. You're going to see some people who like, oh, we need to be friends, and we just let the past be the past and let bygones be bygones, and let's just start the day. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on, and because those are the signs that it's on its last legs. And because it's on its last legs, you know, I think there's a fear of what are other people going to do when they start really seeing the chinks in the armor aren't chinks, they're cracks and dents. You know what I'm saying? They're cracks and dents. It's crumbling, it's breaking apart. So you wind up in a bad situation, a bad situation. And that's why I say these other groups of people who are not, who are not white people, who don't really benefit from white privilege. They're trying to be close to it, in some type of proxy. And if it falls apart, their whole world falls apart. So it's like, a lot of like a house Negro status. Like, oh, what happens if the house Negroes get out of pocket? What happens if the house burns down and the house Negro is left without a house to be the house Negro in, is what I'm trying to say. They're not gonna know how to deal in the world. And using like slavery as a reference, like If the slave house burned down, you ain't at this junction in life, you ain't finna get the quote unquote the slaves ain't finna rebuild it. Ain't finna happen. You on your own. Thus, how you see this whole situation with the, with the farmland and whatnot. You see it in that way. If you've seen it, like, oh, immigration is one thing. You get what I'm saying? But you saw how construction slowed down, and you saw how agriculture slowed down, and you're like, what's going on? And it's to the point that, at the beginning of all the ICE raids and roundups, it was a, they didn't take that into full consideration. And now I'm starting to see now, okay, let's just get back to business, because we got to protect the, how can I say this, the people that's not working for, let's just say, construction and agriculture, those Hispanics and blacks, those non-whites, we can deport them. But the ones working, doing all of the infrastructure and agriculture, oh, leave them alone. And that ain't gonna work, because you basically trying to, you know, you you basically deporting half of a family everywhere. And at some point, you got to realize these people are going. At some point, they're gonna come around and go, you know what? I don't like y'all no more, which is gonna create another situation, because, you know, the same way I would say white privilege sabotages all the other non-white groups in America. White privilege depends on all those other groups, and instead of, being good, good little people who are taking the high road, you're gonna get the pettiness. And people going, no, we sabotaging you too now. And you're gonna see that more and more and more. More and more and more. But let me get out of here, man, because I gotta figure out what's going on. But I'm gonna change the title, because it's like it's white privilege on its last legs. Because they ain't gonna fix the money. They ain't gonna fix the jobs. They're not gonna fix the, globalization. And I take that back. Let me add this to it before I start. If you notice, now I saw a thing recently where they talk about how the electric vehicles, the EV world is gonna, in America, the EV world is just is defunct. It's like, are we done with it? Because it's not what we thought. And in my opinion, what it really is at the end of the day is, um, hold up. What it really is at the end of the day is the United States can't beat China in the electrical vehicle market. That's what it is. So let's just quit and say it's done. Okay. So how many other things you're gonna see that with? Because you're losing control over and over and over again. But now, as I said that, I'm gonna get out of here. Now, y'all have a great day, man. Like, share, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Peace.